Quentin Musty keeps impressing at training camp. Can he make the opening night roster?
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at the Reef, also the co-host of Locked On NHL. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen, proudly part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do, just follow along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be breaking down Quentin Musty's chances to make the opening night roster as he continues to hang on to the NHL group. We'll also be talking about the logjam on defense and if one Jack Thompson could be the guy who kind of be the odd man out. Plus, we'll get caught up with some other news, notes, and intriguing items from training camp here. So before we get started, though, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All right, so we have some separation now with the training camp rosters. As you know, we sent yesterday, there were 7 players got sent back to their juniors or to the Barracuda. And now with the training camp rosters, they have 2 groups. One which very much feels like the NHL group and one which feels very much like the AHL group, or with some of the junior guys in the mix there as well. So really quickly before we kind of get to Musty, so Group A right now, and the thing about this, like this can change from day to day. Guys can move up and down, but with the Sharks having a game on Friday, feels like we're starting to kind of get some separation on who's going to be with the Sharks and who's going to probably start the year with the Barracuda. But Group A, which is the quote unquote NHL group, Will Smith, Ty Dellandrea, and this is in order of jersey number by group, right? So Will Smith, Ty Dellandrea, Quentin Musty, Alexander Wenberg, Barclay Goodrow, Colin Graff, Jeff Skinner, Macklin Celebrini, William Eklund, Tyler Toffoli, Ryan Reeves, Michael Misa, Adam Gaudette, Carl Grundstrom, Philip Kurashev. Defensively, John Klingberg, Nick Leddy, Vincent Desharnais, Sam Dickinson, Dmitry Orlov, Timothy Liljegren, Mario Ferraro, Shakir Mukhamadullin, then Askarov and Nedeljkovic, the 2 goalies. Group B, and again, by jersey number by group here, Afasaniev, Haltonen, Bowers, Olesen, Beasted, Wallstrom, Huntington, LaBerge, Lund, who is back on ice. We'll talk about him a little bit more. Cardwell, Carson Wetch, Zach Ostapchuk, Lucas Van Roboys, Anthony Vincent, Pavel Regenda, and Igor Chernyshov. And then defensively, Havled, Thompson, Cagnoni, Clayton, Furlong, Beck, Haoshi, Wong, and Braden Hache, and then the goalies Davis, Carrier, and Jacob Skarek. So those are your remaining players right now when it comes to practices and stuff. So the interesting, kind of player that definitely sticks out in the Group A is one Quentin Musty, right? And you look at all these other guys, and all these other guys are, you feel like they're NHL players, and even a guy like Colin Graff, who still waivers exempt, but we've seen I think enough from Graff to say that he should comfortably be on the team. We know guys like Michael Misa and Sam Dickinson, the Sharks are going to give them as much runway as possible to try to make the team, and both those guys have played very well so far in training camp, and what we saw in their first preseason game. And I would assume that both those guys get a long run here in the preseason, but it's interesting that Musty is still kind of sticking around here, right? And we've heard how he's just a different dude this year compared to last year. With and as you'd expect, right? He's 20. He's had a couple years, in quote unquote in the system. We know, like, you can easily tell he put in the work this summer to try to get himself ready for full-time professional hockey. And like looks like it's starting to pay dividends for Musty, right? The problem with Musty right now is unfortunately just the numbers game, right? And if you look at the group A, that's 25 names right there. And as a reminder, you have to be at 23 for opening night. Now, well, like there's still plenty of ways to kind of get down, right? You could put a guy on waivers, and we've talked about guys who could be potentially in that bucket, whether if it's a guy like Ryan Reeves, Carl Grunstrom, Vincent Desharnais, kind of those type of players where they're not making too much. And if you put them on waivers, they're most likely going to slip through, and then gives you some flexibility with your roster where you can play them in the AHL, but if you need a body in the NHL, you could easily pull them up type of situation, right? We've seen the Sharks do this before with some of their veterans, but like for Quentin Musty, right, who again is still on a ZLC and still waivers exempt, this is going to be the big fight, right? Can you do enough where if you're not, like, that's always the big question with these young forwards, right? If you're not scoring goals, can you do something else for me? That's why I should put you back on the ice from the coach's perspective, right? And we've seen Musty, like, I think play with much better pace and intensity. And yes, first preseason game, rookie face-off, like he should dominate rookie face-off because of his pedigree and who, like, just the type of player he is. But I thought he showed a lot in the first preseason game. This weekend, and now that the upcoming preseason games, I think is the next big test for Quentin Musty and for all these guys, right? But as you start to see more actual NHL players start to make their way into the opposing team's lineup, right? And Vegas was very much this is our Henderson team with like as few NHL players as we can possibly put in, because there's like rule you have to have like X amount of NHL players on the team for these preseason games, and Vegas was like, here's our Henderson team basically. For Musty, if he can continue, if it's not the scoring, because we know what Quentin Musty can do, and yes, scoring will definitely help and setting up, but it's the little things, right? It's, can you be an active forechecker? Can you be active in the defensive zone? Can you back check? Can you, not try to limit your mistakes while still being aggressive? Those type of plays. And as much as I would love to see Musty break camp with the Sharks, I think I'm still very much in the belief that spending some time in the AHL for Quentin Musty, where he's going to get like top line minutes with the Barracuda, or the very least top 6 minutes with the Barracuda, still is probably the best thing for his development, right? Because Quentin Musty, as I've said multiple times, right, he's always been a bigger, stronger, faster player, right? He's always been bigger, stronger, faster than the guys he's playing against. And now that he's playing against grown men and professional athletes, like, he has to kind of learn that change up pitch, that like, okay, I'm not bigger, faster, stronger and all every time. Like, he's still pretty big, pretty fast, pretty strong, but how do you kind of learn that change up pitch? And how do you kind of, if you're not scoring, how can you be an effective player, right? And we saw William Eklund, right? Not always biggest, fastest, strongest guy, but who spent some time in the AHL and, spent an entire year there and is a much better player. And you see William Eklund, who is now, utilized in all types of situations. And if Eklund's not scoring, he can still be a very effective player in all three zones, and is arguably one of the Sharks, most well-rounded players, at least among their forward group players, right? So I can definitely see, and the great thing too with Musty, right, is you can have him up, give him like kind of what we saw with like Daniil Gushin, right? Last year, Gushin made the roster out of camp. They gave him a handful of games, felt like he just wasn't quite ready. And you can send Musty down to the AHL where he can go play in the AHL. And then if you feel like he's ready to go again, you can always bring him back up. That's the great thing about where Quentin Musty's at right now, because he'll be on the AHL roster, and he'll be right in your backyard, right? You'll be able to work with him every day and have him right there in your backyard. So I still think I think Musty's gonna be one of the last cuts. I think it's gonna be one of the hardest cuts, just like we saw like Luca Cagnoni last year. We'll talk about more in a second here, but spending some time in the AHL and kind of getting used to the grind of professional hockey, not the worst thing for Quentin Musty. And I think it gives him an opportunity to continue to work on those little detail things and add some more to that scoring. Like we know Musty can score, can see him kind of get hot in the AHL, and then kind of because the hope is right when you call up Quentin Musty, you call him up and he stays up. That's what you're hoping for, is that when you call him up, he comes up and he's a Shark for then on type of situation. Just like, right, Colin Graff, who's, yes, I know he went back for the playoffs, but like Colin Graff called up and it feels like, okay, this is an NHL player now. So we're going to talk about the logjam right now with the defense, especially with Jack Thompson and Luca Cagnoni, how these guys kind of, what's their path, I guess, to being on the roster here. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Great thing about FanDuel is it fits however you like to play with player props. So if you feel like, I don't know, Christian McCaffrey's going to have a big weekend this weekend, or if you think Tua is going to throw an interception because Tua always throws an interception, you can do something like that. They have same game parlays, or you can even jump in to live action as the game unfolds. So it makes everything more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping up on your eye on your fantasy lineup. And if you're ready to start playing, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, guys, before we continue, of course, want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. If you haven't yet, perfect time to subscribe. The season is basically here, guys, and this is going to be I think the most exciting Sharks season, honestly, since like the 2018-2019. I think, celebrating Smith, Misa, the whole crew, and we're going to cover all of it here at Locked On Sharks. Make sure you're following along wherever you get podcasts, and of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. So, unfortunately, with the separation of the two groups, two defensemen that you feel like should get an opportunity in NHL at some point this year are kind of stuck in that Barracuda group, right? Between Jack Thompson and Luca Cagnoni. So let's start though with Thompson, who unfortunately, like, he's in a tough situation here, right? Because he's no longer waivers exempt. So for the San Jose Sharks to get him on the Barracuda, they will have to expose him to waivers, where a team could potentially grab him. And we play this song and dance every year with these kind of fringe NHL, AHL guys, right? Where oh no, remember Jacob Peterson a couple years ago, longtime Sharks fans, Jacob Peterson, the whole, oh my gosh, I can't believe the Sharks put him on waivers. And then he easily slips through. He plays here, and then now he's back in Sweden, right? I'm not saying Jack Thompson is going to, have the same career, but we do the same song and dance every year of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they exposed him to waivers. And that, unfortunately, it is like you can only have 23 guys on the roster, and, there is you have to make some decisions here. So for Thompson, though, I think right now there's just a lot of veteran guys just kind of in his way, right? And I do believe this is a kind of a big year for Thompson to push for the NHL. But looking at the additions that the Sharks made this offseason, with guys like Klingberg and Leddy, and Dmitry Orlov, right? You have those three guys who the Sharks went out of their way to acquire. Then you have Sam Dickinson, who again the Sharks, put a lot of draft capital in with picking him 11th overall in the 2024 draft. And Dickinson, unfortunately for Jack Thompson, Dickinson's just going to get priority, right? Because Dickinson is viewed as a long-term foundational piece of the franchise. And again, not to say that Jack Thompson's not going to be a good player or can't be a good player, but Dickinson's just like they're going to give him more opportunities because he was drafted by this, by this team or by this front office. And, the Sharks, like I said, they've invested a lot of draft capital into him. Thompson, though, just, it feels like for Thompson to get into the NHL, you're going to need some buddies, multiple, to get hurt, right? And again, we don't want we don't want Sharks players to get hurt, but that is unfortunately part of the game of hockey is players do get hurt. So I think though, like for Thompson, it's probably going to be wait your time in the AHL, and I think Thompson's going to have a really good chance to play some big time minutes, while Luca Cagnoni is going to be like the number one. Jack Thompson's going to have a massive role on this team, right? If the pairings of like Cagnoni Clayton, which is kind of what you're expecting, and then like Thompson Havlet, or you could have like Thompson's going to have like a pretty big role with his Barracuda team, just like he did last year. And I think he's just going to have to kind of, unfortunately, he's going to have to make the best of his opportunity, right? Whenever he does get a chance. And I assume he's going to get in some preseason games here, and we'll see if he's running the power play or what he's doing in them, but he's going to have to make the most of his opportunities for it. Unfortunately for a guy like Luca Cagnoni, who is waivers exempt, right, and can freely move between the AHL and the NHL, I think his path to the NHL is John Klingberg, right? Because their roles are so similar. Where Klingberg was brought here to run the power play, drive offense from the blue line, until Klingberg is either hurt long term, we'll get to that in a second, or traded, it kind of feels like Luca Cagnoni is going to be in the AHL, which is okay, right? And spending some more time for Cagnoni in the AHL, where he can continue to iron out some of the details of his defensive game, continue to be an awesome offensive driver, and the motor to the Barracuda. Again, that's not going to the AHL isn't like the worst thing in the world for some of these players, right? And Cagnoni, who is one of the younger players in the AHL, still put up an amazing rookie season in the AHL. Like, there's no reason to think that Cagnoni can't build upon that. And a guy like Cagnoni, unfortunately, is a fourth-round pick, and he's 5'9". He's going to have to basically kick down the door and make it impossible for the Sharks to send him back down. So, Cagnoni's going to get his NHL time this year, right? He's going to get his NHL time because John Klingberg has yet to stay healthy for full season for a long time, and because and if he does stay healthy and he's productive, he's probably going to get traded at some point. So Cagnoni's going to get his time, and just like we talked about with Musty, right, where we hope that the next time Cagnoni gets called up, that's the last time Cagnoni gets called up because he stays up, type of situation. Then you go into the 26-27 season where Luca Cagnoni is penciled into the opening night roster and sticks there because Luca Cagnoni is awesome, type of thing. So it's a bit of a logjam right now, 100% on with that. But as you and I both know, injuries happen in the NHL all the time, and we know not all of these defensemen are going to be here the entire season, right? Between Ferraro, Liljegren, Leddy, Klingberg, those four, would you be surprised if minimum two of them get traded at some point this year? Because I would not be surprised. I would. I think that's out of those four, I would say two of those guys are probably traded at some point this year by Mike Grier, and opens up a spot for Thompson and for Cagnoni. And having depth not the worst thing in the world. So we're going to kind of do the potpourri of news, notes, get caught up on some injuries, other intriguing things, including Misa-Eklund partnership, which feels like that's going to be a thing, Misa and Eklund. So we'll get to that all here in just 1 second. Guys, I'm super excited to tell you about my new favorite jeanswear brand, Doer. I've been living in their performance denim straight jeans, and honestly, they completely changed the game for me. I love my Doer jeans because, one, they look great, right? That's important, that you feel like you look good when you're wearing a pair of pants. But two, they're stretchy without looking stretchy. The jeans are made with Cool Max that regulates your body temperature and wicks moisture. Doer combines classic jeanswear style with the kind of comfort and performance you get from athletic wear. It's the best of both worlds. There's a reason why they call them the world's most comfortable pants. And don't take my word for it. Go try a pair on for yourself. You can actually go visit their new store in Hayes Valley. You can feel the difference firsthand. Go check them out at 567 Hayes Street. Mention our promo code LOCKEDONSF in store to get 15% off your first order, or check them out online at shopdoer.com/lockedonsf for 15% off. That's shopdoer.com/lockedonsf. All right, guys, before we finish up, of course want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen every day. For your second listen, go check out the Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Steal and Flip. Provide daily fantasy tips to give you the edge over your league mates, all while making you a smarter hockey fan. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, so this is going to be kind of potpourri of random, just things I find intriguing that's kind of coming up from the beat reporters, from training camp. So let's get caught up on some injury news here and stuff. Cam Lund has returned to the ice. You remember in the rookie faceoff, he took in the first game of the rookie faceoff, took a elbow to the head. They labeled it, of course, upper body injury. But as I always say, if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, it's probably a concussion. So it's good to see that he's back on the ice. No contact jersey. But that's usually part of the ramp up process, right? Is you kind of do a little bit, see how you feel the next day, do a little bit more, see how you feel the next day and then if you have any setbacks, you kind of go back to start at zero. So that's usually how it kind of works with the ramp up process coming back from a concussion. So good to see that he's working through that, and hopefully here a couple of days he'll be back, kind of in the full swing of practice here. So I do think this missing this time, unfortunately, though, really is Lund is going to start the season with the Barracuda, which is again totally fine. The Colin Graf path to success for Cam Lund here. So John Klingberg, who we also mentioned a lot just in the last segment. Klingberg is dealing with an upper body injury that from the first preseason game, so he missed practice today. He's day-to-day, isn't expected to play on Friday, which is fine. Good news is it's not really like Ryan Warsofsky, made it a point to say it's not related to his hip injury that he spent the last couple years recovering from. So, and with Klingberg, yes, I know he's a new player and he wants to get used to it, but he's a veteran. He knows exactly what he's supposed to do. I thought he looked really good in Friday's game. So as long as I would say if he's not back by the Sharks play Friday and then they play Monday, if he's not back by that third game, then you start to kind of maybe raise the eyebrows. I'm not getting the panic button yet, but you start to kind of maybe dig in the closet for the panic button if he's not kind of back into the swing of things by next Wednesday. That's kind of where I would kind of put things with that. So Colin White, the Barracuda forward, he is out for a bit with an upper body injury. It's going to be a couple of weeks for him. And he's going to be a big piece for this Barracuda team, right? And you expect Phil Misa to be the first line center, but Colin White's probably going to be in the mix for the second line center. He was a big time piece for them last year, and I think really helped stabilize kind of that middle six behind Podorowski. When Podorowski was out, he kind of jumped up and played that first line minutes for the Barracuda. So he's going to be counted on to be a big kind of part for them. So, but the other like kind of just intriguing thing is the Misa Eklund mixture, like pairing, and you see this a lot with coaches where they like to put pairs together, and then you usually have two guys on a line. They're kind of like your staple guys, and then you will rotate kind of that other guy, right? And like so, like Will and Mack, that's like your staple right there. And then you might see like guys like Skinner or Toffoli kind of flip flop in there depending on how they're playing. Or if you need some juice or whatever, if you just need to mix things up. But usually, like you see a pair, right, kind of put together. It looks like Misa Eklund is going to be a pair, which would make a lot of sense, right? We just talked about how Eklund is probably one of the most well-rounded Sharks forwards in his ability to right jive play, play well defensively, like help transition. It would make sense to put a player like that with Michael Misa, who is expected to eventually be all those things, but he's going to be an 18-year-old guy going through it for the first time here. So I really like that. And I know right now, like Shang, he had the lines today as Skinner, Celebrini, Smith. Okay. And again, like that kind of feels like it's going to be your top line, right? But this middle six of Musty, Wenberg, Toffoli, Eklund, Misa, Graf. Now, we could be seeing kind of the same thing where they don't want to load up too many young guys, but having Wenberg and Toffoli, who are both veterans and know exactly what they're going to do, playing with a guy like Quentin Musty to put him in a good position to succeed. And then this, right, Eklund, Misa, Graf, and while Graf is still a young player, feels like he's on his way to kind of being that jack of all trades type of player, right? Where I actually think in like, when we get to the regular season, that Eklund Misa Graf or Eklund Misa will be your second line, with most likely having Toffoli on it, and then you can have right Musty, Wenberg, Graf, or Wenberg, Graf, etc. Like I think Wenberg, Graf will probably be a pairing, but the thing like Wenberg and Graf have already played a bunch together last year. Eklund and Toffoli have played a bunch together last year, so it's that chemistry is already kind of built in with those guys. And I think you're right now you're trying to kind of protect some of your younger players in Musty and Misa, who are really kind of going this, Musty, this is like he got sent home pretty early last year, if you recall. Then he sat out for an entire month. So like I think they're trying to protect these guys a little bit. So I don't expect to see Misa Musty too much right now, and that's putting a 20-year-old and an 18-year-old who have a combined 0 NHL games experience together. We'll see about that. So, but I do think though, like Eklund, like if you're worried about Eklund playing third line minutes, I don't think that's going to happen, right? Because Eklund last year was the most utilized forward among Sharks players, forwards, right? He led the most time on ice. Among the forwards, like only like Celebrini was below him, but like Eklund, right, plays on the PK, plays on the power play, plays a ton of 5-on-5. I don't think the Sharks are just gonna like, hey, Eklund, we're gonna cut your minutes by like 5 minutes so we get you on the third line here. Like don't read too much into which line is 1, 2, 3. You look at the utilization and how these guys are actually utilized. And while I expect Celebrini and Smith to continue to have big roles, and especially Smith to kind of continue to grow his roles, I don't think the Sharks, who just gave Eklund a shiny new 3-year extension, are just going to be like, well, you're going to go from 19 minutes a night to 15 minutes a night. That doesn't make a lot of sense, especially when he's, your second or third best forward, depending on if between he's one of your best forwards. You're going to try to get him out there all the time. So, but yes, just intriguing things there. I do like the potential Misa Eklund combo there. So, but that's going to be it for me today. We'll be back tomorrow. So make sure you're following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and on TikTok, Hans Moleman, Cowabunga Dudes. And follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at My Fry Hole. Till tomorrow. Bye, friends.